medical issues, health issues. Long story short, we did have a slight discussion and, they promised to listen to obey some of the things I shared with them. Because it's not going to be really, but I'm gonna say this afternoon, it's stuff that you have heard before. It's stuff that you
No,
know,
for some of
but
us,
for some of us,
it's stuff
it's
that
stuff
we
that
don't do for whatever reason. One of the reasons I'm repeating these things this afternoon in this presentation is so that when we meet people who ask us, not even people who don't ask us, but people who ask us, what do you do for so and so? Or how can we get better health? Or anything even slightly related to health, that we can speak to them intelligently, right? We can speak to them with the full knowledge that what we're saying is what is God's plan. Because God never what? Changes. He is the same God yesterday, today, and will be in the future. So what was for Adam and Eve can still be today. I want to tell you a story. Well, it's not a story, but something I read that was interesting to me some time ago. A man was interviewing the warden of a big state penitentiary. I think the penitentiary was in Idaho, and it was called Statesville Penitentiary. And the person was there interviewing the warden because this particular penitentiary had an absolutely beautiful garden. I mean, when you come up to it, doesn't look like a prison at all. The gardens were really awesome. Beautiful flowers, well arranged, beautiful lawn, trees. And apparently, the prisoners were the people who worked on this garden. So that was newsworthy. And the guy came to interview him and said, well, how did you get these hardened people to actually get out there, dig in the dirt, plant flowers and trees and arrange it? He said, well, it was either that or they'd stay in their cells. You had a choice between a little cell or probably a cell with a crazed person, because he said that there were several people there who were psychologically impaired, but they were in with the regular population. And so consequently, before they started the garden project, they had lots of problems. Fights and different things breaking out, and they had difficult time controlling the prisoners. Until someone came up with the idea, let's put them outdoors to actually do something, not just to walk around aimlessly and pick fights. So they started a garden. Turned out, the guys preferred to be outdoors planting in the garden rather than staying in the cell or even going to the rec room to play whatever, checkers or whatever board games. They would give them the choice. You stay indoors and play whatever games can be found, watch TV, or you can go outside. And everybody would want to go outside. Suddenly nobody wanted to paint or do anything else anymore. But he said the most important thing about this project was that as they went along and the garden developed and began to look beautiful, the guys they found, and people, the experts came and talked with them so that they could verify this, their whole character changed. The ones who were all along thought to be psychologically impaired somehow got calm and collected. The ones who were picking fights every day and had to be locked in solitary and had to be do this, these guys were now much different. And the guy interviewing him said, well, what do you think is the main reason why? He said, I really don't know, but I've come to the conclusion that being outdoors in the sunshine, digging in the dirt, had something to do with it. He said, because that's all they did in this garden. And the work was not easy because it got pretty hot in the summer. They would want to be outside still. So I say, if that could change the whole temperament and character of people who had made a habit of being objectionable and fighting and carrying on in the prison, what would it do for us? We're not locked up anywhere, are we? Or are we? Well, some people are locked up in their houses. Yeah, you know, we go to work. We've constructed a lifestyle that is so opposite to what God had created in the beginning. We get up in the morning, sometimes, most times, when I was working full time anyway, before the sun came up, right? So we don't get any of that because you're busy, you know, trying to rip and run and get yourself situated for the day. Worship is, you know, to the point and finished, and you're out the door. You stay in a building all day unless you purposefully say, I'm going to go outside. And then you got to think about, well, I only got half an hour, so I got to get back in there. And then we come home, but the sun is already beginning to set by the time you fight Atlanta's traffic and you get home. So still, we're not getting that evening sunshine or fresh air. And we do that day after day, year after year. I want to read something for you from, let's see if I can find it. Okay. This is a quote, and I think it is from my life today, but I'm not sure. I can find it in the presentation for anybody who wants to know where it's from. This is what Ellen White writes. If you can see it. The things of nature are God's blessings, provided to give health to body, mind, and soul. They are given to the well to keep them well, and to the sick to make them well. What did she call them? Blessings? We don't often think of them as blessings, right? If I were to ask everybody in here a question, does everybody know what New Start is? Yes, I see lots of heads nodding. You know what it is, right? But how many view it as a blessing to be enjoyed? See what she says? To keep the well, but to make the sick well, okay? The Savior in his miracles reveal the power that is continually at work in man's behalf to sustain and to heal him. Through the agencies of nature, God is working day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment to keep us alive. What a wonderful Savior. What a wonderful Father. He is working day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment to keep us alive. We don't help him much, do we? Maybe some of you do, but I know that I have in the past not helped him very much. To build up and to restore us. What does he want to restore us to? Any ideas? To his image. Thank you, Sister Tina. Yes. And what's his image? Now, Pastor mentioned something this morning, and I thought, that is it, you know, because God wants us to be well, not just spiritually, but also physically. And when that time comes that Pastor was talking about just ahead of us, when we have no resources, basically, these things that we're going to talk about, these things that we are talking about this afternoon, are going to come in very handy. We might as well get familiar and use them as the blessings from God for the purpose for which He created them. Let me finish this. When any part of the body sustains an injury, a healing process is at once begun. Nature's agencies are set to work to restore soundness, but the power working through these agencies is what? The power of God. And that's an important point to remember. You know, sometimes as medical missionaries, when somebody comes to us and says, you know, I'm not feeling that well, or my blood pressure, my doctor says my blood pressure is up, or my sugar count is up, we automatically go to what? We already go to a remedy, right? We go to remedies real quick. It's like when you go to the doctor, they go to medication real quick, right? So the power that works in the natural remedies is not the natural things itself, although they have very outstanding benefits. It is the power of God who instituted these things that works to replace health in our bodies. All life-giving power is from Him, if we could just remember that. When one recovers from disease, it is God who restores him or her, nothing else. He gives the power to natural remedies. So with that as a background, I want us to take another look at natural sunshine. We're all familiar with the sun, right? We're also familiar with what the medical establishment has told us, taught us about the sun, right? What have you learned from the medical establishment about the sun? I know I learned that I shouldn't get too much of it, else I'll burn and I'll get cancer, skin cancer. Now, I'm not saying to run out and just, strip down and stay in the sun all day. You probably will burn. But sunlight has major benefits. And trust me, the sunlight that you get through your car windows, that's not what we're talking about. That does you very little. Because the UVB and UVA rays that should affect your skin do not penetrate your car windows. They're specially created to not let that through. So that is not sun. This is the time I thought it was. So I'd make sure that I get in the car and I take my jacket off and I'd bare my arms, But that doesn't do any good. Sunlight has specific and incredible benefits. You know that the light that comes from the sun has a wide spectrum of light, right? You have the UVA, the UVB, the UVC. There's blue light in there. There's red light, and there's infrared light. Now, that infrared light is the light that you need, and that UVB and UVA you also need. Those things start processes within your body without you even knowing, okay? So, for people who can't sleep at night, have difficulty sleeping, the recommendation is that you get the sunlight early in the morning when the sun is rising. Because of the angle that the rays hit the ground, rays have to come from where the sun is, come all the way down into our bodies for it to do us good. Well, you need to get the early rays We've said before here, several people have said it, don't try to go out in the middle of the day like at 12 o'clock when the sun is standing straight up above, okay? And stay out there for forever. I see people do that in the pool, and I'm thinking, all right now, you're getting your sunshine, that's for real. But you got to be careful and sensible also. Some people burn easily, some do not. People with more pigmented skins don't burn as easily, but they also can get burned too. So you have problems with sleep, get some sunshine. Early morning or towards sunset. Don't wait till it's set, but towards the sunset. Go outside. And you don't need a lot, 10 minutes. Now you could spare 10 minutes before you get to work, right? Or maybe come up from work a little earlier and catch that sunlight before you get in the car and go home. Whatever it is you have to do, that's something that you could do to improve your sleep. Did you know that sunlight also fights depression and improves mood? We heard in the story that I told about the prisoners. It definitely changed their mood. It definitely changed their temperament. And this is just from being outside in the sunlight. You know how when it's been raining for like a couple of days and you get all, I wish it would stop. You know, you start fussing and then you go outside and it's bright and it's warm. How instantly you feel better. You feel good because of that sunlight hitting you. It's what it does. It improves your mood. It helps to reduce stress. Now, the procedure is complicated. So to understand something, we have to go back to Biology 101. Some time ago, many years ago, I did a presentation here about the cells. Did you know that an adult male has approximately 36 trillion cells in the body? And women, 28 trillion. I can't even fathom what a trillion is, but it's that many. But inside each cell, there's a nucleus, we know, but there are some other little things called organelles. One of those organelles is called mitochondria. Mitochondria are the things that power the cells. It's a very complicated cycle, Krebs cycle and ATP and all these chemical things. However, what's important for us to know is that the mitochondria in the cells can die. If we're not doing what we're supposed to do, they'll die. Or they'll get just sick, like a daisical, won't do what they're supposed to do. Consequently, we feel like sluggish, a little tired, fatigued. You know, our mood is not that great. These mitochondria also age. Now, the only way to keep these little guys happy, give them what they want, is to take advantage of what? Natural sunshine, natural sunlight. It's not the only way, but it's one of the major ways. Now, we all know that sunshine works with our skin to produce what vitamin? D. Very good. And vitamin D is very important in the immune response. Now, we just came through a period where everybody had COVID, and we're heading into something else. I am pretty sure. I can hear the war drums already beating, you know, various people getting on YouTube or on TV and say, you know, get your boosters and your whatever for whatever is coming. Well, they know something is coming. Strengthen your immune system before it happens so that, you know, it doesn't catch you unawares, or better still, you don't get it at all. And you know that right here in this church, we've had people who didn't have it at all. And so, strengthen your immune system. Vitamin D is an important part of the whole system set up by God to take care of that. Strengthens immune system. It reduces, therefore, your risk of catching something. I know recently there was a cold, some kind of rhinovirus going around, and everybody was getting a touch of it. Improve, boost your immune system. Get your sunshine daily. I mean, even if you have to break up your work cycle, you know, to go outside at some point and get some. do it. It helps with weight management. Those of us who are looking to lose weight, being outdoors helps. How about it fights, we already said that, fights depression. Bone health, keeps your bones healthy. A lot of older women suffer from osteoporosis, which is a thinning of the bone. So maybe 2 years ago, one of my doctors said, oh, you need this test. And I said, what? And she said, well, you know, you at your age, you need to check your bone density. I said, I beg to differ, but just to please you, she's a nice lady. I said, it's not invasive, is it? She says, no, no, no. I said, okay, let's do it. DEXA scan. And she came back with her brows knitted a couple days later. She says, why don't you come and we could talk about this? I said, why? Just tell me what it says, you know. She says, no, but you know, your bone density is pretty good. I said, yeah, I know. She says, how did you know? You had a test already? I said, no, but I follow a specific, you know, pattern. The way I eat, what I do, I know it's going to be all right. She says, but you told me before you have a family history. I said, yes, but those family members now drank coffee all day long, did not get much exercise. There are a lot of reasons why that happens. So I'm saying, we already know that God put the sun in the sky for a purpose. He is not a capricious guy like, oh, I forgot, let me just throw it. No, 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 no. Everything has a purpose and a plan. And all that he did was for Adam and Eve, for their benefit. What do you think about us? For our benefit, these things are there. But we kind of, you know, we know about sunshine. Yeah, we know it's good. But how much of it are you actually making time to get every day? So bone health. How about skin conditions? Lots of kids these days have eczema and psoriasis, things like that. The sunshine is a very good healer. And when I mentioned this, they're like, well, we're outside all the time. I said, but at school, during the daytime, they've cut out recess for the upper grades. So like from 6th grade on, the kids are not going outside if you go to a regular public school. When I went to school, the Adventist high school had a program, and we would go, we had a farm. We had a garden plot, not a farm, a garden plot. And we went there and actually pulled weeds and planted things and watered the garden and things like that. It was part of the curriculum, but not anymore. So you will have to really make time for you and your children to enjoy the sun outside. Another part of being outside that really I like is going barefoot. Have you all ever heard of earthing, grounding? Yeah. At first I was like, what kind of pseudoscience is this? But on researching it, there is more and more evidence that going outside barefoot in the ground has something to do with changing your mood, strengthening your immune system, and all of the things that we talked about before. And I thought, think about it. When God created Adam and Eve back then, did he give them shoes? Huh? No, I doubt it. Like everybody wears Crocs these days. You go out in the street and everybody has Crocs on. Wherever they're going, there's a pair of Crocs. And I thought about it. The Crocs are rubber soled, you know? Nothing touches your feet, absolutely nothing. And so how good can that be that your feet are encased in rubber all day long? You know, as nurses, that's what we wear, comfortable shoes, and usually they're rubber soled and they're thick. Nothing goes through there, you know, but that's supposed to keep our feet from getting fatigued. But really and truly, it kind of cuts us off from some benefits of being in the ground barefoot. And the thing is that that I found out on researching this is that you don't need like a prolonged period of time. You really don't need a prolonged period of time. You can just stand outside in the yard, and I do that now, in barefoot, um, for about 10, 20 minutes. I walk around the garden. There's some prickly stuff, but I just try to avoid that and walk around and, accept what the ground has to offer. Now, I say that to say this. There's something else that our cells absolutely need for health, and that is the vitamin B12. But as vegans, we don't eat meat, and they tell you beef, chicken, fish, these are the things that, have B12. I wondered, well, how are we going to get this B12? Until I read an article some time ago about the fact that, do you know that B12 is in the dirt? It's in the ground. Microbes that live in the earth make B12. And if we play in the dirt like you planting, like right now, I'm putting together my summer stuff. So I'm digging up dirt and I'm getting dirt together and putting it in pots and stuff. And I try not to use gloves because, I want to get whatever benefit is there in it. So I was so happy when I read that B12 is produced in the dirt. An old Adventist doctor said he was asked a question by somebody. So y'all don't eat, he was asking this. He said, y'all don't eat meat and all. How do you get your B12? He said, just walk through a barn, any barn, with some animals. You'll get some. So it's in the dirt. And by playing in the dirt, I found out a further interesting thing about B12. The microbes in the soil that make it don't need it. They don't need it for their health. Now, I thought to myself, what a strange thing that they make stuff that they don't even need. So who gets the benefit of that? B12. I thought about what the Lord must have had in mind for us when he created Adam and Eve, They had to dress the garden, tend the garden. Maybe that was how they got their B12. That is important for our health. So sunshine, people, it's what you know from New Start. Don't just file it away the back of your head and say, well, I know that. Actually make time to get some every day. The vitamin D is essential for lots of functions. We just went over some of them. And that is what you basically need. Plus, it elevates your mood. Lots of people keep telling me, I don't feel so good today. I'm a little down today. I always suggest, let's go outside. I have a young lady at my office right now, and I constantly have to improve her mood. I'm not sure why the younger ones have such difficulty keeping, on an even keel. But my thing is, let's go outside. Okay, so on to the next thing. So we talked about some sunshine. And this is something God created for our benefit, as a blessing to us, but we don't even use it. Okay, we're going to bypass that one. We're going to go to air. Air is the free blessing of heaven, calculated to electrify the whole system. Some time ago, we had a discussion here about air and how to breathe, I hope we remember that. It's a blessing. So just now we discovered that sunshine is a blessing. Now air is a free blessing. You don't have to pay Aetna or Blue Cross Blue Shield or Medicare, Medicaid, none of them to get some fresh air. You just have to step outside in God's open nature. Life in the open air is good for body and what? Mind. Last year we spent a lot of time talking about diseases of the mind. I suspect that if a lot of those people who are statistics in our presentations were encouraged to go outside every day and breathe fresh air and just wait for the sun to do its job in our bodies, then maybe the mind would be better. It is God's what? Medicine. It is God's medicine for the restoration of health. I mean, I don't know how much plainer that statement could be. Life in the open air is God's medicine for the restoration of health. Pure air, good water, sunshine, beautiful surroundings. Well, we can't all have beautiful surroundings like the picture we had at first. But anything outside is supremely better than sitting inside all day long. There are His means for restoring the sick to health in natural ways. You know, at the turn of the century, no, it would be the previous century, in the 1800s, Dr. Kellogg started a sanitarium, and I think it was at Battle Creek. In those days, in the I guess it was about the 1840s, 50s, 60s, TB was a big deal. You had to be sent away. You couldn't stay with your family, you know, for fear of infecting them. It was a big deal. It killed people. Or disfigured their bodies, because TB germ can get into your bones and really, really disfigure you. He opened a very successful clinic. It was called the Sun Clinic. And he had all his patients stripped down and in the sun, outdoors for the greater part of the day. And it is amazing how many people got cured from TB, and not just cured, but returned to vigorous health. There was one guy who they had given up. He was a doctor, and he came to Dr. Kellogg's clinic. I forget his name, but anyway, he was given up and told he had 5 months to a year and that the disease would take him. And Dr. Kellogg said, well, let's try what we got here. Take your stuff off, get outside, stay outside. Now, he kept that man out there, rain, snow. They were out there in the cold weather. They had a hut, you know, but there was like how our tent at Camp Eaton has those awnings like, to let in the fresh air. They would be in there. So he put them on a program of exercise, limited exercise, much as they could manage, sunlight, fresh air. That's it. No antibiotics. This doctor that I'm telling you about gave an interview, and he said, somebody interviewed him and wrote about him, and they said he was the strongest man they had ever come across, because after he got well from Dr. Kellogg's program of being outdoors, sunshine, in cold weather, he became a bodybuilder instead of a doctor. And they said he was so strong that it was unbelievable. So I'm saying there's plenty of people who can attest to the fact that these simple things that we think are, well, we can use that alongside of whatever medication Dr. So-and-so prescribed. But I'm telling you, if we trust God, and we learned last week when I did the 10 minutes thing that the gospel and health go what? Hand in hand. They're provided by the same creator, the same maker, for the purpose of what? Of building our bodies, keeping us well, so that we could do the job that we really have to do. And I'm not talking about the job at the office. I'm talking about the job that's coming right in a few minutes before us, where we have to give the loud cry. We can't do it so well if we're always sick, right? So guys, these things are said not just as things to be sad, It is so that we can give God the glory and the praise for providing such free blessings. They don't charge us nothing for sunshine. There's no charge for air. Okay? So his means, these are his means for restoring the sick to health in natural ways. I want to move on so Pastor could have his time. Life in the open air. It is God's medicine for the restoration of health. Let men and women work in the field, in the orchard, and in the garden. And I know plenty of people are going to say, well, I'm going to find time to do that. I got to work so I could pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever. Well, it's your choice, but I think that most people can make adjustments if you want to. Most people can make adjustments so that these things can be utilized. She says this will bring health and strength to nerve and muscle. Every part of the human organism should be equally taxed. This is necessary for the harmonious development and action of every part. God made nerve and muscle in order that they might be used. It is the inaction that brings suffering and disease. So this young lady is out there doing what? Gardening, digging in the dirt. And she's got lots of stuff to show for it, right? Looks like some greens and carrots and lettuce, lots of things. So in addition to being outdoors in the sunshine, digging in the dirt for that B12 again, she's also utilizing her muscles and her nerves. So I love outdoor gardening because I'm never the same after some time outside. I come inside and I feel more positive and, get more done. So I got another story for you. And this one is about Ellen White herself, and she writes about this. She writes about this in, I think it's My Health. Not sure which book. Let's see if I got a list here. But I can find it for you if you want to know afterwards. And she says that they were living at Battle Creek at the time. And she got so sick. She had a terrible cough. And it seemed to her like she was coughing all day, all night. She got so weak from the coughing all the time that she felt like she was just going to die. This is Ellen White. And her friends concurred with her. They said, yeah, it doesn't look good. This cough is going to take you. But her husband was James White, man of faith, good man. And he said, yeah, if she stays here, she'll probably die. But we're going somewhere. He took her to Greenville. Now, I don't know if they had a house or they had friends with a house there. And Greenville was some 80 miles, she said, from where they were. But she was so sick, she couldn't even sit in a carriage. In those days, they didn't have cars, it was carriage. She couldn't sit for coughing. So what she did is, he put down blankets and pillows, and she knelt on them, put her head on his knees. That's how she made an 80-mile trip. Got to Greenville, and as she got there and barely was able to make it out, he said, well, I got some work for you to do. And she's like, yeah, but this cough. He says, it's all right. He said, I got a chair for you. And he put a little deck chair. He says, and I want you to plant out this row of strawberry plants for me. And she said at first she was looking at him like, yeah, why don't you do that, right? That's what I would be thinking. How about you do that? But she did it because she felt like he was thinking about her and her health. So she said, slowly she got out. Slowly she made it to the patch, to the row. He said, just put out these in a row. You know how we do it. And slowly, she planted the strawberry plants. She said, don't know what happened, don't know how it happened. I expect God had something to do with this, and my husband, she said, but by the end of the day, when she was finished planting the strawberry plants, the cough was gone. So that was her personal testimony to the outdoor life being of some benefit to the human frame. So recently, one of my daughters had a cough, and she said, so what should I do? I said, you know everything I know, because, She says, yeah, I've tried some of those things. I need something else. I said, I got something else for you. Sit outside. Go on your back porch and sit in the sun. Do that for at least 10, 15, 20 minutes if you can. Breathe deeply of the air, and then call me. She didn't call that day. She didn't call the next day, so I said, how's the cough? How's the cold? She says, strangely enough, it's getting better. I said, okay. So what worked best for you? She says, I guess sitting out in the sun, because the other stuff I was taking didn't do nothing. I said, reluctantly, you approve of God's plan? Wow. Praise the Lord. But we gotta be gentle with folks who don't really trust God. You see, Pastor was getting at something today, and he said that it's the heart, If you believe that these natural things are the blessings given to us freely by a loving God, then if you are judicious and using them and doing all the other things you should do to stay healthy, then you can expect God to bless and heal you. There is no question about it. This is how he operates. He gave us these things so that we could stay healthy. And if we are unhealthy by our own negligence, let's say, or maybe you inherited something, you didn't ask for it, but there it is, then he's giving you a way to taper it down. So I highly recommend the outdoor life. So when Sister Diane offers us a hike somewhere, we need to go. We need to go. I tell you, I did not come to exercise easy. Anybody who knows me knows that I was never a big fan. I moved judiciously, but I'm not exercising to the point of sweating and all that. Although, as a kid, that's all we did, and we were never sick. We stayed outside, we ran all day long, we did whatever we had to do, whatever was the next project, and we stayed well. As adults, somehow we adopted the idea that this running around is for children only. But I tell you, it's some good running around to be had outside, So do it. Do it whatever way you can. Okay, so she talks about exercise, but you all already know that. In the open air, even in winter. How many people go outside in the winter? Yay, very good. Okay, go outside in the winter. I read that and I thought, okay, note to self. And there are actually clinics in Europe. I don't know about any here. I didn't read about any here. But clinics in Europe where a certain part in Switzerland, it was surrounded by mountains. So they had these young children who had TB come there. And their cure was for them to be outside in the winter and in the summer with very little clothes on. They were down to underwear, basically, and they would be outside playing ball, skating on the lake. But they explained they were able to do that in the cold because the mountains surrounded that place where they were, the sanatorium. So it wasn't a lot of wind. So when they were outside and the sun was shining, even though it was really cold, they didn't really feel it. They felt the rays of the sun with a slight chill, but there was not much wind to make them feel really cold. The pure, invigorating air of heaven is God's free gift. We harping on that free, because healthcare these days costs so much money. Don't get sick, is all I have to say. Do not get sick. You will end up bankrupting yourself trying to pay them off. Don't get sick. So, this is free. The pure, invigorating of hair is God's free gift to men and women, and it is impossible for them to be cheerful. But she says, impossible for them to be cheerful, healthful, happy, unless they appreciate these rich bounties and allow them to answer the purpose for which they were designed. So God has designed all these things, and we only talk about three things: the outdoor life, for sunshine, for fresh air, right? And for exercise, and for digging in the dirt. So there's many ways that you can exercise. People like swimming. Have fun. I will get in, but I never learned how to swim, so I'm going to learn before too long, though. You can walk. Now, that's easy. Everybody can do that. I like a nice brisk walk. I go to the park near my house, and that is very invigorating. Or you can bike. That's also something that I like, but haven't done a whole lot of, because in the park, the people who get on bicycles are a little bit too enthusiastic. So I haven't gone there with my bike, but I do in my neighborhood. So these are just some ways. It's whatever you like, but as long as you get to it, that's the important thing. Okay, so we talked about a number of things. And one last thing I got to tell you about the sun. Research has shown that, several forms of cancer, colon cancer, and that's on the uptick. And guess what population? Young people, like 20s and 30s. That population is on the uptick with colon cancer. It's food, and breast cancer and prostate cancer. Also, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Increased sun exposure protects people from these. That's what the research shows. That's amazing. Even for metabolic syndrome, which is the diabetes, the high blood pressure, and the high cholesterol, increased sun exposure can help with that. So these are things, brethren, that you don't have to ask somebody if you could go. You don't have to get a prescription from the doctor. You don't even have to go to the doctor. You just do it, because God says this is what he put in place for us. He said this is how we heal ourselves. Just go there. And the sunlight, a lot, I see it a lot now. People are buying, what do you call these things? Light panels. Like people who don't get out a whole lot, or even people who do. They're buying these light panels that have infrared light. I know the gym that I go to sometimes, they have a whole machine that has the infrared light, and you could just go stand in there. It's like a tanning bed, but you stand up. And it's not a tanning bed, you don't get tanned in there, but you get exposure to the infrared light. And that infrared light is what a lot of people want from sunshine. I just want everything sunshine has to get. I don't have So I prefer to be outside, but if you can't, then buy you a red infrared light. They have face panels, people use it for their face. They have body panels, it's like an arch, and you lay under it, and the rays penetrate, and sun rays can penetrate really deep. to the deepest layers of your skin, so you don't have to worry about that. But let's just say, all in all, that these natural things that the Lord has put in place for us are supposed to be used. We can't be of any use to Him in the next stage of our existence if we can't speak, or we can't walk, or, for some other reason, we are ill, too ill to function. And so now, while we can put these things in place, just figure out a way to put it in place, and that way you stay well. Any questions? No question. Everything understood. Let me see all those who are going to be outdoors more. I know, Deborah, you're constantly out there, but praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Amen. Very good. See, now the Lord has seen those hands. Okay, so He's going to be expecting you to follow up. So follow up. All righty. So, Pastor, we're going to turn it over to you. Yes, sir.